Hey everyone, I just thought I'd make a new video addressing some changes to Project Zomboid. We are approaching the release of build 42. Right now I'm on build version 42.19 and we know that the release version is going to be 42.20, so we're pretty close to our final state of Project Zomboid. My old video is almost a year old now, so I thought I'd run through a couple different changes for some settings that are better for new players. To start, we're going to go into options, into user interface. We're going to scroll down and make sure that we select melee target outline. This is going to highlight your melee targets and it's going to let you see whether or not you're going to hit them. Next thing you want to change is the clock format. These need to be relevant to whatever region you play from and what makes sense to you. Celsius, Fahrenheit, day, month, year. Then hit apply on that one. Being new players, first thing I recommend is to always play the tutorial, but I know that you guys have already done that, so we're next going to hit solo. That's where our game's going to begin. Now that we click solo, we've got a couple of different play styles to select. We can see Apocalypse, Outbreak, Rising, Extinction, Custom Sandbox, and Challenges. And there's a couple of options down the bottom. Choose mods and next. For now, we're not going to worry about modding and we're not going to worry about these challenges. Inside the challenge tab, there's a really cataclysmic dark day ahead challenge, house in the woods, and winter is coming. But there's plenty of time for you to get into that later. Prior to these builds this year, we used to have an apocalypse setting, a survivor setting, and a builder setting, and these have kind of been broken apart a little bit. Apocalypse is your standard canon Zomboid experience, and it and Outbreak are very similar. They've had some changes, but we'll touch on that in a second. Rising is more closely based on the builder option from before, and Extinction is the Apocalypse setting, but really dialed right up. It's a much more challenging playthrough to try, so I would stay away from Extinction for now. If you're a new player to PC gaming as a whole, and also Project Zomboid, you're not too familiar with the keyboards, I would recommend giving Rising a try. But saying that, I think for new players that some sort of blend between Outbreak, Apocalypse, and Rising, so somewhere between these three settings, is a good place to start. What we're going to do is we're going to click Custom Sandbox. We're going to use Custom Sandbox to edit any of these three settings, and we're going to kind of build the world that we want to live in. So I'm going to click Custom Sandbox and click on Next. Once you hit Next, we are introduced to the map screen. Have a look at the map, explore the world, read some of these adverts. They've got some interesting POIs in them, some addresses of interesting facilities you might want to visit. But importantly, you've got a map legend that's going to tell you a little bit about how the world is laid out and how you can get between them all. A little bit of history, facts about Knox County, north orientation here. You're not going to see this map again, but you can access it in the game files as a large PDF file that you can download. There are some online maps as well, but I would say as a new player, maybe avoid using the online maps because adding to the exploration and sort of the fog of war aspect of the game makes it a little bit more interesting. With this setting, we have a whole bunch more maps, rather spawn locations available to us. If we go back and check Apocalypse, we're limited to the original 4 spawns: Muldra, Riverside, Rosewood, and West Point. However, in Custom Sandbox, we've got a few more options. We've now got Brandenburg, Echo Creek, Phallus Lake, Irvington, March Ridge, Valley Station. And all of these have their little short blurbs, some nice sort of static images of some interesting attractions in the area. You're going to have a chance to play all of these. I would still recommend for new players to select Rosewood or potentially Phallus Lake. I kind of mentioned in my previous video that new players are likely to spend a lot of time between Rosewood, Vallis Lake, and Echo Creek. This mostly agricultural area is quite interesting for new players. There's some interesting gun stores here. It's not too densely populated, and Rosewood is a classic starting town. Saying that, you can start wherever you want. You're going to have plenty of chances and opportunities to die and try again. On this page, you can name your save. There's also seed generation. This doesn't matter too much, but we're just going to select something. Brandenburg, why not? And move on to the next tab. In our sandbox options, we get a few presets that we can work from. So these presets down here at the bottom of the screen highlight a couple of the roles that we saw in the solo tab: Apocalypse, Outbreak, Extinction, and Rising. It also has a 6 months later option, and you can see that whenever you click one of these presets, the text will change to yellow, and that shows that there's been a change from the base Apocalypse setting. So if you ever wanted to run through any of these and just see what's different, all you need to do is look out for those yellow changes. So you can see here, 6 months later occurs 6 months later. Makes sense, right? I would stick with the date, the canon Zomboid start date, 9th of July. It's a good time to start. If you do end up playing 6 months later, there's some pretty punishing winter debuffs. In the zombie tab, we've got a couple of different things that we can work from. One of the more recent changes between these presets was that Apocalypse and Outbreak have disabled zombie respawn. It used to be an option that I'd kind of recommend for players to turn off anyway, especially new players. And you can see in things like Extinction and surprisingly Rising, I'm kind of surprised that the builder mode has zombie respawn. I guess the zombie population is quite low anyway, but I'm just going to press on with this. So one of the main differences between Apocalypse and Outbreak is the rarity of loot and the available options in the world settings. So I find that working from Outbreak is now quite a good way to start customizing your game. Zombie count, I would keep it normal. The distribution urban focus makes sense. Voronoi noise is just how zombies are randomized in an area. We're going to leave respawn off and enable migration, because we do want them to move around to empty cells. Zombie lore, we get a few different options here as well. Sprinters, fast shamblers, shamblers, and random. If you have random selected, you can select how often you'd like sprinters to appear. Now, one thing that I'd like to recommend is, you see here low, what does that mean? We don't have an actual number. If you head down to the bottom and click on this advanced option, then instead of having a descriptor as to how many zombies are going to be present, we get a percentage. So here we see low actually equals 6% of zombies will become sprinters. Likewise, normal is actually just 33. So I'd like to always have this advanced option enabled so that you can read the description of this option and decide that maybe I just want one, like a really, really rare one. For new players, I would just stick them between random, and I would disable sprinters entirely. You don't want to be dealing with that as a new player. Strength and toughness, this can remain as random. Transmission, we have a few different options here. Blood and saliva, saliva only, everyone's infected, and none. If we select none, there's no transmission. No one will become infected, you just die. If everyone is infected, then if your player dies from player gunshot, falling to their death, dying in a car crash, their body will reanimate as a zombie, and this is more relevant to multiplayer games. Blood and saliva means that whether you were bitten, scratched, or lacerated by a zombie, there's a chance for you to become infected. A scratch is just 7% chance. A laceration is 25% chance, but a bite will always be 100% chance of infection. If you select saliva only, this is a better option for new players, because then you know that if you're bitten, you're dead, it's game over. However, you're not going to get super unlucky with a dice roll on a scratch or a laceration. Infection mortality, I would bring that right down. It can be a little bit brutal to lose your favorite character or your new character over a period of 2 to 3 days or 1 to 2 weeks. So I like to bring that down to about 12 hours. Reanimation time, not too important. In single player at least. Cognition now, so I would leave everything on basic navigation for this, and I wouldn't change too much of the memory options either. Changing these options between cognition and hearing can let you create some more interesting challenge modes. Say, for instance, you can have very short-term memory, but they can be basically blind, but have pinpoint hearing. And this can be more interesting for your own like challenge modes, right? Keep the new stealth system enabled. Environmental attacks, if players have not seen, I like to leave that disabled because it doesn't make much sense them randomly attacking buildings. You want them to damage your construction. This day-night speed effect, you can make, say, night sprinters or day sprinters by using this. So I would just keep both. You can, say, make your zombies more lethargic during the night if you change this option, but it's better just to leave things as is for now. Zombie house alarm triggering, I like to leave enabled. It makes the first few days a little bit more interesting. Contrary to what I said in the last video, I think that leaving drag down, crawlers drag down, and zombie lunge on is important. It's good for new players to kind of learn that you don't want to get surrounded by zombies. There's this added chance that if there's sort of 3 zombies near you, that they will overpower you and it will cause an instant death scenario. So it's maybe a good setting to have to really hammer in how lethal these guys are at close range. Up to you though, these 3 settings. Scrolling all the way down, advanced population settings. Playing on the base level of this makes more sense. Right now you can see an outbreak setting. The population peak day has changed from 28 to 20. 28 days is just there as a reference to the movie 28 Days Later, but you can change that to a little bit higher if you want to, say, have a little bit more time to prepare before the highest setting becomes prevalent in your world. In these options here, loot, I wouldn't change. Everything about this needs to just stay the same so you can get accustomed to the base, availability of loot around the world. If you start giving yourself things too easy, you might lose your appreciation for them. Saying that, water shut off, electricity shut off, we're in the world settings now. You could increase the time for this. There's always a chance that water and electricity shut off will be instant. There's always a chance that water shut off will be instant unless you select 2 to 4 months. That is a very, very long time. So for new players, potentially change the water. I would say keep the electricity shut off between 14 to 13 and 14 to 2 months. Any longer than that, and it removes a bit of the challenge of the game. But water shutting off, if you get really unlucky and water shuts off on like day 2, that can be a bit punishing. But there's plenty of water in the world, up to you. Alarm battery decay, basically just lets your alarms in the houses stay active. That setting's fine. Fire spread, a lot of these options here, I wouldn't worry too much about changing them. In nature, we're going to keep everything here more or less the same as well. Meta, I would leave everything as is. There's one exception to this, the helicopter event. If you have a hard time dealing with this, you could maybe turn it off for your playthrough until you become a little bit more accustomed to the game. I would stay away from sometimes and often settings. Again, up to you depending on how confident you feel to it. Inside your character sandbox options, I would come down and select a starter kit. This is going to give your character a packet of chips, a water bottle, a small backpack, a baseball bat, and a hammer. And these starting items will give you a really good head start. Eventually, I would say start deselecting that, and eventually you'll learn to scour for these very, very valuable items. Weapon multi-hit, you can enable this one. For a few weapons, it kind of makes sense that you'd be able to hit more than one zombie, right? If you had a machete or a katana, it makes sense that you'd be able to sort of swipe across one or two of them at a time. Coming down to the vehicles tab, I would change a couple of things here as a new player. Chance that it has gas, remain normal, but change the initial gas to normal as well. In the livestock tab, I wouldn't change anything. I hope that has made a little bit more sense to you guys. That it plays somewhere between Outbreak and Rising makes most sense as a new player. A few of these settings you don't have to change, and you'll become more comfortable with the game as you play it more. The number one rule here is basically don't get too attached to your players, your player characters. Just start up a new game whenever anything goes wrong. Thanks for watching.